like to welcome everyone to Gal Time. Everybody thinks that it takes an adult, it takes somebody with a lot of experience to start a movement. The truth is that Gal Time was started in California by a 10th grader. Her name is Yocheved Deutsch. She's a 10th grader who was very inspired by Ornava and said, like, how come high school girls and 7th and 8th graders can't have something like this? And we said, well, we don't know if 7th and 8th graders or high school girls will really be interested in such a program. So she said she's going to try it in California. And Baruch Hashem, together with her and Sarit Rubenstein, I flew to California, and I was shocked that the program for 7th and 8th graders was well attended. And then the high school program from all the different Beis Yaakovs, we had over 100 girls. And we realized that there is such a need. And this whole idea that started, Ornav itself started 8 years ago with 16 girls. Today we have over 3,500 women in Ornava. And this program, starting tonight, a lot more than 16 girls. If you do the multiplication, you can imagine what it's going to be like in 7 and 8 years. And this whole thing was started by a 10th grader. It was not my idea. It was not Sarit's idea. Sarit helped a lot to make it happen in California, but it was a 10th grader's idea. So even though she's not here, we really should have flown her in. I'd like to thank Yocheved Deutsch for having that amazing idea. And of course, Sarit Rubenstein for making it happen. Also like to thank Yitti Kirshner and Chaim, who are personal friends of mine, who Yitti really pushed this, went to all the schools, spoke to all the principals, and really made it come to fruition. And of course, Chaim from Garden of Eden, I'm sure most of you have been there, for always helping us and volunteering and donating food and really helping us out in any time that we need him. So thank you very much, Chaim. I'd also like to thank Bela Collar, I know where she is, for helping making this happen and putting all the spirit and energy that she has into this program. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Sfira, which we're in right now. Today's Rosh Chodesh Iyar, Ani Hashem Rofecha. And we know that Sfira starts, I don't know if you girls have ever seen this, but when you say Sfira afterwards, there's these little words. Chesed shebechesed, Chesed shebetiferes, Yisoid, Netzach. Every single day of the 49 days, we combine all these different words till finally the 49th day, the last day of Sfira, is called Malchus Sheba Malchus, the kingdom of kingdoms, which is the highest level. The next day is Shavuos. The next day we get to Torah, once you hit Malchus Sheba Malchus. Sfira starts, the first day that you say Hayom Echad Ba'omer, starts with Chesed Sheba Chesed. So we learn from that the only way to get to Malchus Sheba Malchus, to get to a point to be Makabel the Torah, to become on the level of the King of all kings, which is Hashem, is you have to start with Chesed. If you don't start with on the first day Chesed Sheba Chesed, you can't get to Malchus Sheba Malchus. We all know that pretty much every Yontiv is based on a woman. Shavuos, which we're coming to, is based on Rus. Rus is what we read, Megillas Rus, on Shavuos. Now there are many reasons brought down why we read Megillas Rus on Shavuos. One of those reasons is that if you take Rus's name, which is Reish Vav Tav, right, which is Rus, and you add Hashem, which is a Hey, it spells Torah. So Rus became a Geiris, and therefore she took Hashem into her life. So she went from Rus, the word Rus, into Torah. Also, if you add up the word Rus, it's 400 is Tav, and Reish is 200, 600, and Vav is 606, and there's 613 mitzvos. So Rus had 7 mitzvos because she was a B'nai Noach, she was a Goy. So she already had 7 mitzvahs. So when she became a Geiris, she accepted 606 more mitzvahs. So that's why Rus is read on Shavuos. But I am sure that we could find many names, right, and many Geiris and many Geirim that we could talk about them on Shavuos. Why specifically Rus? And the answer is that Rus was based on Chesed Shebechesed. And therefore, Chesed Shebechesed, you can't have Moshiach because from Rus came the whole Malchus of David, right? You can't have Moshiach ben David. You can't have the whole Malchus of Klal Yisrael unless it's based on Chesed. What Chesed happened in Rus? And why do I feel that it is so important to talk about this at this Gal Time opening program? So, we know that there was a very big chesed that she did in the beginning, that she stayed with Naomi, and she didn't leave like Orpah did. But the chesed that was really done was done by Boaz. And I'd like to read it to you from inside. So, you girls you all learned this already. We know that Rus was a Moaviyah. She came from Moav. There was a big machlokes in Klal Yisrael if a Moaviyah could become a Jew. Because the Torah tells us that you can't have someone from Moav becoming a Jew. Why? Because the Jews, also based on Chesed, when the Jews went by Moav, they asked them to give them food and water, and the Moavim said, no, we're not giving you anything to eat. So the Torah tells us that a nation that in their genetics is so mean that they're not willing to give children and women and men to eat when they're starving, we don't want to mix into their DNA. We don't want to mix into their genetics. Avraham Avinu, our genetics is we are Bali Chesed, we are Bali Rachamim. We don't want to marry into a nation that's anti-Chesed. So we're not allowed to marry Moavim. But, very fascinating Chazal. When the Malachim came to Avraham Avinu, so they asked Avraham, Aye Sarah Ishtecha, where is Sarah your wife? Where is she? We came here to eat. You're serving us. Yishmael is serving us. You go to someone's house, who serves? The mother, the daughters. Aye Sarah Ishtecha, where is she? Avraham Avinu said, Hine babayis. She's not supposed to serve men. It's not tznius for a woman to serve men. So she cooked everything, but she remained in the house. Because it's not a tzniistic thing for women to serve strange men. We don't know who you are. He didn't know who the Malachim were, that they were Arabs. He said, so he paskin lahalacha, Avram, that a woman is not supposed to serve men. Therefore, if that's the case, then the Moavios, the women from Moav, were not supposed to come out and give Klal Yisrael to eat because it's not tzniistic. And therefore, Moavim, the men, were not allowed to marry. But the women, maybe they were Balei Chesed. They just didn't come out because it's not tznius to come out and give food. And therefore, because of that, Rus, who was coming out of Lot, the Malach that came to Avraham Avinu was now able to go save Lot. Because the only reason Lot was saved was because of Rus. But until Avraham Avinu paskin the halacha that a woman is not supposed to serve, there was no reason to save Lot because Rus wouldn't have been able to marry. This argument in Klal Yisrael went on for a long time. All the way till the days of David HaMelech. Was a Moavis, a woman from Moab, allowed to become a Jew? So, let's see what happens. She goes with Naomi, she comes back to Eretz Yisrael, and now she goes down to the field of Boaz. Girls, who was Boaz? Boaz was the shofet, was the head, like the king. Before kings, he was the head of Sanhedrin, he was the head of Klal Yisrael, he was the Rav Moshe Feinstein, he was the Rav Chaim Kanievsky. He was the highest of the highest level. So what happens? He calls her over. Now, he tells the men, the boys, not to bother her. So the Mefarshim ask, what do you mean bother her? And the Mefarshim say that when she came into the field, being that she was a Moavis, they said, you can't gather the leket, the tzedakah that's falling off when they're collecting, because you're not a Jew. And they try to take her and physically throw her over the fence, says the Medrash. Get out of the field. You're not Jewish. You don't belong here. Could you imagine how she felt as a girl going into a field to collect tzedakah, and the boys that were working in the field wanted to take her and throw her over the fence? Now listen to Boaz. Vayomar Boaz Urus. And, well, let's go a little bit before that. Vayomar V'hine Boaz ba mi Beis Lechem. And Boaz came from Beis Lechem. Vayomar lo yivrecha Hashem. Vayomar Boaz l'nara nitzav al hakoitzrim. L'mi hanara zois. Who's this girl that's collecting? He saw she was a very big tznuah because she wasn't bending over to pick up the wheat. She was doing a curtsy to pick up the wheat. So we saw that this girl was a little bit different. She was a tznuah. Why was she a tznuah? Because the whole basis of her being alive, of Lot being saved, was because Avraham paskined that a woman doesn't serve other men because she's a tznuah. So in her genetics, the only reason that she ever was born, that Lot was even saved, was because of tznius. So automatically she had this midah of tznius. So in the field, she didn't bend over to pick up the wheat. She curtsied to pick up the wheat. So he saw that there's something different about this girl. So he said, who is she? And what did they answer? Listen carefully. Vayan Hanar Hanitzav al hakoitzrim, the boy that was the head of all the guys who were harvesting, he said, I'll tell you who she is. Vayomer Nara Moaviyahi. He didn't say she's Jewish, she's a nice girl, she's a tznuah. He spoke Lashon Hara. He right away said, she's a Moaviyah, Hashava im Naomi Mistei Moav, who came back with Naomi from the fields of Moab. He didn't say one nice thing about her. All he said was nasty things. She's a Moavi, and she came from Moab. Not one nice thing did he say about this girl. That was his report. Okay? So, Vayomer Boaz walked over to Rus. Listen carefully to how a Jew, this is a Gadol Hadar. This is the one who's leading the door. What does he say to Rus? Vayomer Boaz o Rus, Halo Shamat Biti. Haven't I heard my daughter? He calls her his daughter. You hear? The Nar said she's a Moaviyah who came from Moab. And the Gadol Hadar, Boaz, says, Biti, my daughter. She never heard that before in her life. She's unaccepted by the Jews. And the head of the Jews, the biggest tzaddik, the Rosh Hashiva, walks over to her. He doesn't say, Moaviyah. He says, my shefela, my biti, my daughter. Al techi likluk basada acher. I'm begging you, don't go to anybody else's field. Okay? But tipol al paneha, girls, when you talk to someone correctly and you don't judge them. Such an important lesson for tonight that we're all here together from all different schools. So we don't judge, but just the opposite. The Gadol Hadar calls this girl, who everybody else called the Moaviyah from Moab, he says, Biti. He says, my daughter. What's her reaction to a person who talks to her that way? Vatipol al paneha. She fell on her face. Vatishtachu arza. And she bowed in front of him. Vatomer elov. And she said to him, Madua matzasichei beinecha. Hakireni. Why do I find favor in your eyes? Why are you even recognizing me? Why are you even talking to me? I'm a stranger. Why are you giving me attention? Forget about calling me BT. Why are you even talking to me? I'm a stranger. I feel different. Vayan Boaz. And Boaz said something, girl, that you should never forget. He says, when it comes to dealing with another Jew, you have to focus on their good side. Not like my boy, my Nar, who said, this girl, she's a Moaviyah from Moab. He Vayan Boaz v'yomalo hugad li. They told me, Kol asher asisas chamoisech, everything that you did for your mother-in-law, that after after your husbands died, you left your mother and father's house. Her mother and father were kings in Moab. And you came to a nation that you don't know. And he gave her a bracha. Yishalem Hashem palecha. Hashem should pay you back. So you know what she said to him? Vatomer, she said to Boaz, Emtzachem be'enecha Adoni. I have found favor in your eyes, my master. Kini chamtani. Because you have consoled me. Until now I was unaccepted. Nobody accepted me into Yiddishkeit. They called me names. They tried to throw me over a fence because I was different, because I came from Moab. But you called me your daughter. Kini chamtani. You consoled me. And she goes on. You spoke to my heart. This is unbelievable, Megillas Rus. She said, you spoke to my heart. You didn't look at the outside of me. You didn't look at that I've come from Moab. You didn't look at that I'm a ger. But you looked at my heart. You looked at who I was. You called me Biti. You called me your daughter. So she says it to him. And you didn't treat me like one of your maidservants. From this meeting, girls, came David HaMelech. From this meeting comes Moshiach ben David. From a man named Boaz, who had all the rights not to talk to this young woman, to say, she's from Moab. But from a man who was able to see past her chitzonius, from a man that was able to see the heart of this girl, and to call her Biti, my daughter. From that is godless. That is a gadol hadar. That is a tzaddik. And that is why Rav Shimshon Pincus Olav Shalom Zchus Yagan Aleinu says, we read Rus on Shavuos. Because in order to be makabel the Torah, in order to reach Malchus Sheba Malchus, Mashiach ben David, you first have to be Chesed Sheba Chesed. You first have to be able to see past the chitzonius of the other person, and to see their lave, and to understand that every Jewish girl to Hashem is a Biti, is a daughter of Hashem, and that there is no difference. And that's what's going to bring Mashiach. And that's Malchus Sheba Malchus, and that is why we read Rus on Shavuos. One of the things that I talk about a lot, it's hard to speak twice in a row because I don't like to repeat, what I just said an hour ago. But there is one point that I did say an hour ago that I would like to repeat. So I grew up in Muncie when I was a little boy. So in school, outside of my yeshiva was a big field, and in that field, that's where we had recess, were hundreds, maybe thousands of caterpillars, and hundreds, maybe thousands of butterflies. So I grew up. I wasn't a New York kid, I was a Muncie kid. But I was always a kid that had questions. I thought. A Jew is supposed to think. Gemara is made of questions. Rashi asks many questions. Mefarshim asks questions. So I had a question. And my question was, why did Hashem create caterpillars to become butterflies? He definitely had enough time to create caterpillars and butterflies. You don't have a mouse that becomes an elephant, right? You don't have any other animal in the world or insect that changes what it is. You have a tadpole that becomes a frog, but the tadpole is a frog before it's a frog. It's a tadpole, it doesn't have legs yet. But a caterpillar goes through what we call a metamorphosis, and it becomes a butterfly. And I did not understand, why did Hashem just create a caterpillar and create a butterfly? And it bothered me. And I asked. And of course I got no answers. I got the answer, don't ask. That's what Hashem wanted to do. You don't ask questions. which made me ask even more. Because Hashem doesn't waste anything in this world. So I felt it was a good kasha. I needed a teretz. But to understand the question, you have to understand the butterfly, and you have to understand the caterpillar. So I decided, as a young boy, to do research on a butterfly and a caterpillar, which was extremely unusual for a boy, studying butterflies. It was a little weird. I was playing football, basketball, hockey, and studying butterflies. And in those days, all we had was an encyclopedia. You had to actually look up things. And I read about this whole metamorphosis, that this caterpillar goes into a metamorphosis where it changes from its caterpillar stage, and it goes into a cocoon. The cocoon closes on it. It's dark. It only allows one caterpillar at a time. It's moist. The caterpillar goes through this metamorphosis, and what happens to it inside the cocoon, Baruch Hashem, you're the late class, so you all ate dinner already. What happens is that the larva, the actual caterpillar, splits open, and its guts come out, and then it dries up and becomes a powder, which is called a chrysalis. And from this chrysalis comes the butterfly. And much later in my life, I asked a gadol, and the gadol told me that there's a zayar in Kabbalah that says the parpar, which is the butterfly, is an absolute proof to Tchias HaMesim. Because in Tchias HaMesim it says, in the Navi, that our bones will turn back into flesh, and our life will be put back into our bones. The butterfly, the caterpillar that becomes this powder called the chrysalis, actually dies, becomes powder. And from the powder comes a new insect. So the Zohar says that the proof to Tchias HaMesim, Hashem created a butterfly to prove to us in His Bria now, if you don't believe that such a thing can happen, I already created something that it could happen to. And that's the butterfly. So the Zohar says that the proof of Tchias HaMesim, Zeh HaParpar. It's the butterfly. So when you look at a butterfly and you see it flying, you can point and say that Bria, that creation, is a proof to Tchias HaMesim. But they didn't tell me that when I was younger, because I don't think they knew that answer. But let me tell you the answer that I came up with after studying the butterfly. So I have a little bit of an imagination. Anyone who knows me, hears my speeches, know I have a little bit of imagination. I'm a bit out of the box. In fact, in kindergarten and pre-1A, they thought there was something wrong with me, because I always colored outside the lines. In those days, Baruch Hashem, they didn't have this testing or anything, or who knows where they would have sent me. I'm a big believer, if you have a kid that colors outside the box, outside the lines in the coloring book, that's a kid that's going to get somewhere in life. Anybody can color inside the lines. The kid that colors outside the lines, that's the school I want. But anyway, I thought like this. So you have all these little caterpillars at the bottom of a tree with 22 little fat legs, fuzzy little fat legs. And what are they doing? They're at the bottom of a tree. What do caterpillars do? They mulch. They eat grass and they eat leaves that fall off the tree. That's it. It's their whole life. Living at the bottom of a tree, eating a bunch of leaves. So I'm imagining, I don't know if you ever saw these caterpillars. They're like hundreds of them. If you ever went through the mountains, they're like all together at the bottom of the tree, like hundreds of them. Gross. For girls, for surely gross. For guys, it's fantastic. We take our little magnifying glass and we pop each one. Okay, anyway. So, there's this one caterpillar. There's this one Yocheved Deutsch in LA. There's this one caterpillar who says, life has to be more than sitting at the bottom of a tree with our 22 little fat legs eating grass. There's got to be more to it. I heard, someone said a story that if you climb up the tree, there's a room called cocoon. And if you go into that room, you come out with wings. And you can fly. And he gets up And he turns to his friends. He says, guys, this is crazy, wasting our whole life at the bottom of a tree, eating leaves. Let's climb up the tree. Let's go into that room. Let's get wings. And they're like, he's crazy. There's no such thing as wings. It's a fairy tale. You can't fly. No such thing as flying. No such thing as wings. You're a Meshugana. We'll call him Chaim the caterpillar. Chaim's nuts. Making up stories. Cocoons. Wings. Meshugana. Come on, let's just hang out at the bottom of the tree and eat some more grass. And Chaim's like some of you girls that are in here right now, Chaim's like, no. There's more to life than this. You guys are wrong. I'm telling you, there has to be wings. And he starts to climb up the tree. And all his friends on the bottom of the tree are laughing. You'll be back! Or you'll fall off the top of the tree and go smish. And mush, we'll come to your levaya. And he's looking down and he's saying, no, you gotta believe! Wings! And they're like, yeah, wings, schmings. Yeah, wings. And you can imagine that he's talking to himself as he's climbing the tree. It's gotta be true, that story, that there is a place that you can grow. And you can fly. It just can't be that life is all about being at the bottom of a tree. And girls, I can tell you this. It's a very lonely trip when you leave your friends and you want to grow. Because they're all sitting there and telling you, you're Meshuggah. What do you have to be like that? Just be with us. And you're like, no. There's more to life than just this. There's got to be more to life. There's another world. And how many people laugh at us about the other world? There's another place where you get wings. And you have to work on it, and that's why we're here. So many people laugh at us when we want to change. You're not going to make it anyway. You're going to be back with us anyway. So what are you doing? Just because some rabbi got up, some Rabbi, something you learned, all of a sudden you got a chizuk and you want to change. And they laugh. They're like, come on, come back down here with us. But inside your heart, you know that you're different. And there is such a place. And even though people are making fun of you, you keep going. And even though people are telling you it can't happen, you keep going. There's 150 girls in this room right now, Kenai Nahara, or more. There were 130 girls, 7th and 8th graders in this room an hour ago. When all the young ladies that came up with the idea of opening gal time, all they got from everybody was, it won't happen, it can't happen, it won't work, it doesn't work. And so many people turn around and they just walk back and they give up. But there's always that one caterpillar that says, I'm willing to take the chance, I'm willing to struggle to get those wings. Because once I have those wings, it's worth it. So I'm in the mind of this caterpillar as he climbs up the tree, thinking, maybe I'm right, but then again, maybe I'm wrong, and I'm going to be a foolish person, foolish caterpillar in front of all these other caterpillars. And he climbs and he climbs and he climbs, and there it is! At the edge of the branch, the cocoon. The room. And he's thinking, you walk in one side with all your little 22 legs, and you walk out the other side with wings. This is easy. See? The dream is true. You can get wings without working. And he walks into the cocoon. Now, if you read anything about the cocoon, the minute the caterpillar crawls into the cocoon, it's like a trigger. Cocoon closes on it. Uh-oh. That's not what I thought was going to happen. You're supposed to walk through and come out with wings. Help! Get me out of here! Cocoons don't listen. They don't talk. And that caterpillar is stuck in that cocoon for 30 days. Read your encyclopedias. 30 days he's stuck in a hot 96-degree room. And you know what's happening in that room? He is suffering. He is splitting in half. His guts coming out. He's drying up. He's like, oh my goodness, the whole thing was a trap. My friends were right. There is no heaven. There is no place where you walk in and come out with wings. It's a trap. I'm stuck. 30 days. Stuck. And then finally, after 30 days, the cocoon opens. The bottom. I saw a butterfly being born. The bottom of the cocoon opens a little bit, and the butterfly has to squeeze himself out of the bottom. And you're not allowed to help it. If you rip open the cocoon, the butterfly falls to the floor and just plop, splatters. Because the way it lives is as the way the larva, the middle, pushes its way through the bottom of the cocoon, which is teeny, it squeezes all the juices from the middle of the larva into the wingspan of the butterfly. So you cannot even help it when you see it suffering to get out. You gotta let it finish, push itself out. Once it's out, it's beautiful, it flies away. If you open it, it's gone. So now he finally pushes his way out of the cocoon, and there's little Chaim, standing at the edge of a branch 20 feet above the ground. And he looks down to the most terrifying scene that you could imagine. His 22 legs are gone. He's got 2 little thin twiggies. And he's like, huh? I don't got no legs left. 30 days in a cocoon. What's going on? And you know, caterpillars have sticky on the bottom of their feet. So they could climb a leaf, they could climb a tree. Butterflies don't. He's like, oh my goodness, when my friends see me, I am the laughing stock. I have 2 little twiggy legs. They have 22 legs. And he's standing up there 20 feet above the ground, and he's like, all the suffering and everything I went through for 30 days, Shalom Aleichem, twiggy. And along comes another butterfly and says, what are you doing standing on the edge of a tree? Let's go. Let's fly. He's like, what? Fly, jump off the branch. Oh no. Jump off the branch, I'm going to land with my friends down there. I got no legs. They're going to make a levaya for me. No, I'm not jumping. He says, what do you mean land? You have wings. You can fly. But you have to understand something, girls. Somebody who never used their wings doesn't know that they have wings. How many of us sitting in this room right now have wings, have potential, have the potential to fly and to grow? We have no idea what we have. We just see these 2 little legs that we don't think could take us anywhere. So this butterfly shows Chaim how to use his wings. And probably the most terrifying moment of this insect's life is when he jumps off that branch. The most terrifying moment of a person's life is when they decide to change. Because you don't know if you're going to make it. And you don't know if you're going to crash or if you're going to fly. But at the same moment when you decide to make that change and you make that jump, it's the greatest moment of your life. Because the first time you fly is the greatest feeling there is. So Chaim jumps. And Chaim moves his wings, flaps his wings, and all of a sudden he feels the wind under his wings, and he's able to fly. And he looks down at all his friends at the bottom of the tree, and he feels so sorry for them. For the rest of their lives, that's where they're going to be. The greatness, interesting in the encyclopedia that it says, which I think is a lesson that I got, and that's why, Baruch Hashem, I started Ornav and everything that I do. The encyclopedia says the following: a butterfly is not a caterpillar with wings. It is a Beria Chadasha. It is a new creation. And that's why it has to become a chrysalis. It has to die before it becomes a butterfly. It's not a caterpillar with wings. A person who grows and a person who changes is no longer the other person. They become something new. And as I got older, I thought about something else. The most beautiful insect in the world is the butterfly. Why? Why is that the most beautiful insect that Hashem created? If you go to butterfly, they have a place in Manhattan, they have a place in Butterfly Gardens, where they have these thousands of different kinds of butterflies. Huge wingspans, almost as big as birds. Monarchs, unbelievable colors. Why specifically the butterfly? And the answer is because it suffered to become what it is. It's the only insect that Hashem created that suffers to become what it is. And Hashem says, if you suffered and you made it and you're still connected to me, then you have the most beautiful colors. And that is why a butterfly has the most beautiful colors, because it went through hard times. And that is why Klal Yisrael has the most beautiful colors, because no other nation in the world went through the times that we went through. To get to Malchus Sheba Malchus, you have to go through Chesed Sheba Chesed. I'd like to end with a story that I don't say much, but I think it's a very important story. So many years ago, I told the story of the butterfly in Arnava. And afterwards, a girl that sits in front when I speak, she's Down syndrome. She came over to me and said, Rabbi Wallerstein, I would like to tell you a story. I didn't take it that seriously. I said, you want to tell me a story? I'm the storyteller. She goes, I have a story I need to tell you. I'd like to repeat to you the story she told me. She said, Rabbi Wallerstein, did you ever hear the story of the moth? I'm like, the story of the moth? She said, yes, you told the story of a butterfly. I want to tell you a story of the moth. Well, okay, what's the story of the moth? She tells me the following story. She said, one day there was this girl sitting with her grandmother on the porch, and a big fat white moth landed on the porch. And the little girl took off her shoe. You know, moths eat your clothing. They used to have mothballs in the old days. So she takes off her shoe. It's an ugly white moth. So she takes off her shoe, about to kill it. And her grandmother says, no, no, no. Don't kill the moth. She goes, Grandma, it's not a butterfly, it's a moth. They're disgusting, they're ugly. This is what this girl's telling me. So the grandmother says, no, 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 put your shoe back on. Let me tell you the story of the moth. And the grandmother says the following story. Listen very carefully. This is what this young girl is telling me. She says, when Hashem created the world, He created butterflies. Beautiful butterflies with many colors. But then the world sinned. And Hashem decided to destroy it in Noach's time. And then after He brought Noach back, He said to Noach, I want to make a deal, a bris, an agreement. I will never, ever destroy the world again. And to remind you of this, I'm going to create something new. It's called the rainbow. So this Down syndrome girl says to me, but Rabbi Wallerstein, Hashem already created the world. There were no more colors for Him to make the rainbow. So He called in all His butterflies. And He said to the butterflies, could you give me back your colors so I can make a rainbow? And the butterfly said, no, Hashem, you already gave us these colors. We're not giving them back. So this girl said to me, except for a small group of butterflies. And they said to Hashem, you want our colors back to show the world that you'll never destroy it again? You can have them. And they gave Hashem their colors, and from that the rainbow was made. And the moth is a butterfly who gave up its colors. You're not allowed to hurt them. And this is what this girl said to me. where did you get this from? Not a medrash, it's not true. Hashem didn't run out of colors and call the butterflies. Where did you get this story from? It's an amazing story, but where'd you get it from? And she looked at me and she said, I can't tell you. So really, you can't tell me. Where did this story come from? I can't tell you. And she said, good night, Rabbi Wallerstein. She walked out. Strange story. And it bothered me. Because I don't believe Hashem does anything for no reason. Why did Hashem send this girl to me with this story? And then it hit me. She was talking about herself. She was saying, people look at me different, and people think I'm different. I'm not. I'm a butterfly too. I just gave up my colors for someone else. That's what she was trying to tell me. And I walked out of there and I said, wow. We look at them different. We look at people different. We don't understand what those people gave up for us to be who we are. That was Boaz. That was Rus. Boaz looked at Rus and he saw a biti. He saw a daughter. Everybody else looked at Rus and they saw Moaviyah. Is how you look at things. And that's the level that we're supposed to reach at the end of Sfira. Because the reason that the 24,000 Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva died was because they didn't treat each other correctly. And they didn't realize that each one individually was great. And that's what we need to learn from this Sfira. And that's what we need to learn from this story. And we need to recognize that every single Jew is a butterfly. And if they don't know how to fly, and they think they're still at the bottom of a tree just being a caterpillar, then it's our job to show them that they have wings. And to say thank you. And to make other people smile. I was just telling the other girls, when you eat lunch and they're serving you in the dining room in school, say thank you to the person. Thank you very much for serving me. And when the janitor cleans up your table after you finished eating, say thank you for cleaning up the table. It gives them that extra life. That's the color that you have to give to somebody else. They get a different strength in their step when you say thank you to someone, when you say good morning to someone. And that goes for your parents and your siblings. It's not only strange people. Thank you, Ma. Thank you for being there, Ma. Have a good day, Dad. I want to give you a bracha. I know you have a big business meeting today. You should have hatzlacha, Ma. You should have hatzlacha, Dad. I know my sister's having a test today. You should do well on your test, sister. It doesn't have to be. Chesed is not only outside the house. Yeah, you get a smile from them. You give them wings. You show them how to use their wings. That's what Gal Time's about. That's what Ornav is about. That's what Yiddishkeit's about. That's what Sfira is about. We start with Chesed Shebechesed, and we end with Malchus Shebemalchus. That's what Boaz was about. That's what Rus was about. That's what David HaMelech was about. That's what we're all about. And I think that's the godless, and I really appreciate all the principals and the teachers that allowed all the different schools to come together. I think this is the first time that many, many different schools are together, realizing that all of us, everyone in this room, is BT. When it comes to Hashem, you're all His daughters. It doesn't make a difference what school you go to. It doesn't make a difference what block you live on. You all are HaKadosh Baruch Hu's daughters. And you all have wings. And we just have to learn how to use them. That's all. So I want to wish you all hatzlacha and bracha. And I'm going to turn over the program to the girls who really got this thing going. And I really appreciate, you should know that you're all the pioneers. You're the beginning of something really big. And Lakewood already asked us to see how this is going. They want to do it in 5 towns. So you're the pioneers. They get a lot of the thank you, a lot of the schus to each one of them that came. You should have hatzlacha. We should all reach Malchus Shebamachus together.
Wow. Thank you. Very well. We are so third time. Then a third group. Change the real, it's real. You're walking, you're the pioneers, and I'm telling you that when Hashem looks down, you're going to see the first group, and you're going to see next year more girls and more girls. But then remember, you girls came, the first girls. That's visible. You're so happy to be part of it. Every girl, everybody is going to get, everybody's going to get bracelets, but every group is going to get one of these packets. The Gal Times Lunch event, April 2012. Time to spread your wings and soar. So everybody, at each row, we're going to pass it around. And please stay seated.
And don't squeeze them.
And don't open them.
And don't squeeze them.
We are ready to open it.
Don't squeeze them.
We're going to open it at one
Don't squeeze it. Don't squeeze them.
Yeah, we said we have a lot of surprises, so.
Don't squeeze it. Don't squeeze it.
Each row.
Tell them it's a monarch.
It's a monarch. Everybody come in. Relax this experiment.
Don't squeeze it. Don't squeeze it. It's alive. It's a monarch. It's a live butterfly. What? It's alive. It's alive.